At a press conference in Greenbelt Monday, Van Hollen said he intends to go to El Salvador himself if Abrego Garcia is not back by midweek.
I understand that the Attorney General said that we would provide a plane to bring him home.
And we are back, y'all. Thank you for watching today. Go ahead and hit that like button, people. You know that it helps us out a ton. And of course, it helps you because it helps us. Now, y'all, today we're going to just cover two quick stories that have to do with the migrant situation. The first is, did y'all know that California is literally going into debt, taking out loans in order to give people who don't have permission to be in the country, to give them free health care? Like, you're about to see that right now. You see that guy, Gavin Newsom? He's putting his state into debt to give them free health care. And then we're going to get into a story where you're going to see that a Maryland senator plans to fly to El Salvador to try to bring somebody back from a prison that the federal government has deemed a terrorist. He wants to bring him back to Maryland and just release him into Maryland. Now listen, I'm not saying this guy's a terrorist or a gang member, but that's what the government has said. So let's get into it.
Senator Gavin Newsom says the state short on funds for its Medicaid program known as Medi-Cal. The state expanded the program to cover undocumented immigrants. The governor asked lawmakers to approve another $2.8 billion in loans on top of a $3.4 billion loan issued last week. So California now making up a $6.2 billion shortfall in Medi-Cal funds. The money meant to keep the program properly funded through June.
The realities are the realities. You have to balance budgets. We balance our budget. Revenue is holding up. I don't see anything significant along the lines of what some have asserted. But I do see the need to make adjustments and changes broadly in the Medicaid system.
Meantime, Republicans blaming Democrats for creating financial insecurity with the Medi-Cal program. They say undocumented people should not be covered.
So there you saw Gavin Newsom saying that, hey, yeah, man, we want to go $3 billion more in debt in order to give people who the federal government saying, look, not only don't they have permission to be here, we're trying to get them out. And Gavin's like, well, while they're here, Californians want to go $3 billion more into debt so we can give them free health care. Now, look, y'all, that's just what's happening. I'm just reporting. You guys will make your own determination. Now, let's get into the Maryland senator who actually wants to fly to El Salvador to bring somebody back that the federal government has said is either a gang member and or a terrorist. Let's take a look.
Senator Chris Van Hollen is urgently requesting a meeting with the president of El Salvador this week during his visit to the U.S. to discuss the return of Abrego Garcia, the Maryland resident who was wrongfully deported. Van Hollen says he is prepared to go to El Salvador if Hilmar Abrego Garcia is not returned. Caroline Forback has the latest.
It's been more than a month since ICE arrested Maryland sheet metal apprentice Hilmar Abrego Garcia and deported him to a maximum security prison in El Salvador. The Trump administration has since admitted Abrego Garcia's deportation was an administrative error. The Supreme Court ruled the administration must facilitate his return.
It is absolutely unjust and illegal to have this Marylander detained one more day in a notorious prison in El Salvador.
Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland requested to meet with Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele while he's in the U.S. this week to discuss Abrego Garcia's return. At a press conference in Greenbelt Monday, Van Hollen said he intends to go to El Salvador himself if Abrego Garcia is not back by midweek.
I understand that the Attorney General said that we would provide a plane to bring him home. So all the president of El Salvador has to do now is hand over and release an innocent man.
However, during the meeting with Trump administration officials Monday, Bukele said he has no intention of sending Abrego Garcia back to the U.S., even though he was never charged or convicted of a crime.
Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States?
Van Hollen is still hopeful he can appeal to Bukele.
All of us, as members of the Appropriations Committee, also support whatever foreign assistance budget goes forward. So I believe that the president of El Salvador will reconsider when he understands the full story.
In Greenbelt, Caroline Forback for WJZ.
Thank you, Caroline. And just into the WJZ newsroom, a new statement from Jennifer Vasquez Sura, wife of Hilmar Abrego Garcia. It says in part that the White House and El Salvador's president, and I quote, continued to play political games with his life, adding, quote, Hilmar, we will not stop fighting for you.
So will you return him? And you are doing a great job. Thank you. Stephen Miller, wait a minute. Could you just also respond to that question? Because, you know, it's asked by CNN, and they always ask it with a slant because they're totally slanted because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them. But would you answer that question also, please?
Yes, gladly. So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As 2 immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So he had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the President could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world, and I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan to ask for anything to get him back? And what was the ruling in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
in our favor.
In our favor, against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual, at El Salvador's sole discretion, was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time. Well, no version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it, per the court, can only be directed to him.
I asked President Bukele, can President Bukele weigh in on this? Do you plan to return him?
Well, I'm supposed to have suggested that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right? How can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
But you can release him inside El Salvador.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing, we're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. We just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
They'd love to have a criminal, released into our
there's a fascination.
They would love it.
They're
sick. These are sick people.
As usual, y'all, I'd like to know what y'all have to say about this. What's going on here, y'all? I don't, I really don't get it. Why do we spend all the money, time, attention, effort? Why do we set up a system where you have to get permission to come into a place? And then when people don't have permission, we're actually going out of our way to facilitate and to coddle. And I just don't get it. Like, why? If that's the case, then why not just say there's no permission needed? Like, everybody just come on in, and we'll set everything up for you and try to make it comfortable. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I want to hear what y'all have to say. Please drop a comment down below. But before you do, please hit the share button and share this video out over email, text message, WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all your social mediums. And of course, if you're not a subscriber, please do subscribe. Thank y'all for watching, and we'll see you back in the next one.